In Luke chapter 13, beginning at let me come back to verse 22.
13.
Luke 13, beginning in verse 22. And he there is Jesus, went through the cities and villages, teaching and journeying toward Jerusalem. And then said one unto him, now this one that spoke to him is not given us to know as far as the name or a position in society or any other identifier. There was just one of the crowd around about him, said unto him, Lord, are there few that be saved? And he said unto them, strive to enter in at the strait gate. For many, I say unto you, will seek to enter in and shall not be able. When once the master of the house is risen up and has shut the door, and you begin to stand without and to knock at the door, saying, Lord, Lord, open unto us. And he shall answer and say unto you, I know not whence you are. Then shall you begin to say, we have eaten and drunk in thy presence, and thou hast taught in our streets. But he shall say, I tell you, I know you not whence you are. Depart from me, all you workers of iniquity. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth, when you shall see Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and all the prophets in the kingdom of God, and you yourselves thrust out. And they shall come from the east and from the west and from the north and from the south, and shall sit down in the kingdom of God. And behold, there are last which shall be first, and there are first which shall be last. This is, brothers and sisters, not particularly one of the easier sayings of Christ to try to delve into, to try to discern, and to try to mine the riches of what he has us to have here, what he has us to know. I told the crowd last week that there are, as we proceed in the study of this event in the ministry of Christ, that I wanted us particularly in this, as these weeks unfold, because it'll take us several weeks to get through this study. I want us to note particularly 3 points and kind of keep these three flags, if you will, kind of at the forefront of your thought processes as we go through these scriptures. The description of the way of salvation in these words of Christ. The description of that way is called the strait gate. S-T-R-A-I-T. Somebody tell me what straight spelled that way means.
Narrow. It's conservative.
It's a place to go through.
Yes, but what kind of passage?
Narrow passage.
Ma'am?
Narrow, little.
It's narrow. It's narrow. It's not broad and all-encompassing, is it, Diana?
No.
Exactly. It is a narrow passageway. I want us to note, secondly, the plainness of the command. And this is an imperative sentence. Strive to enter. That is a command. It is not a suggestion. It is not a do this if you feel like it, or do this if it suits your fancy. It is a command. Strive to enter. And then I want us to note, as the study progresses, the awful, the terrible prophecy that is contained therein. And that awful, that terrible prophecy is that many will seek to enter and shall not be able. Now, there was a lot that I went over last week with them, but I will not try to, in an all-encompassing way, do that. But I do want to particularly touch upon one point. Diana and Buddy have rightly told us that this straight way is narrow. It is difficult to pass through. And I asked you last week, how so is the way of salvation difficult? Well, certainly in the broadest sense, in the highest sense, we would say it was very difficult for the one who purchased that salvation for us, wouldn't we? Our salvation is a costly salvation. It cost Jesus Christ everything.
Yes.
It cost God His Son. For God so loved the world that He what?
Gave His only
Gave
begotten.
His only begotten Son. That's a high price, brothers and sisters. I have one child. He's in that room right there. Talk to me about giving him up. That's a high price. How else is that gate narrow? Well, it's narrow to all who love their sin and this present world. It's narrow to all who are determined not to part with their sin. It is narrow to all who set their affections upon the world and seek its treasures, its pleasures, its rewards. It's narrow to all who remain untroubled over the state of their eternal soul. Come on in here, brother. We're glad to see you. We just got started, Brother Frank. Come on in.
Come on in, Frankie.
Brother Frank's been at work, and I
All right.
texted him earlier to see if he was coming. He said he had to work, and he didn't think he'd make it.
We're glad
But
to have
we're glad you did.
They dropped me off from work, so I hadn't had a chance to hang on.
You are fine. You are fine. It is narrow to all those who are untroubled over the state of their own soul. Brother Frank, we're just kind of reviewing last week right now, and you ain't missed a thing.
Listen.
It is narrow to all who are self-righteous. Jesus Christ instructs that those who are not sick have no need of a physician. It is narrow to all who depend upon their own righteousness. These brothers and sisters, the gate will not admit. God is not because, let me emphasize this. Not because God is unwilling to receive them, but rather because they won't come on God's condition. They won't come on God's provision. They've got another way. Jesus says, I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life, and no man does what?
comes to the Father.
No man
saved by
comes to
me.
the Father but by me, he says. Now, brothers and sisters, those who perish, it is not because, and I want us to understand this, it's worth repeating. It is not because their sins are too great to be forgiven. Jesus was crucified between two malefactors. He was crucified between two terrorists. Basically, put it in modern day parlance.
That's right.
One of those two terrorists was in paradise, went to paradise when he drew his last breath.
That's right.
They are not, no one perishes. No one perishes because his sins are too great to be forgiven. But rather, again, because they refuse God's way of salvation. Thousands upon thousands upon thousands over the last 2,000 years have tried in desperation to make this gate wider. The gates of Jesus' day, there were no chain link fences around, although I have a chain link fence at my house, Brother Charlie, and if I needed to make that gate wider, I know that those posts are set in cement, and I don't know that I would be able of myself to even make that gate wider. I guess I could take my truck, if my truck was a better truck. If I had Brother Rimbin's big old truck, that big old white thing, Larry's truck, I could take that truck and I could knock over one of the poles, and I could make that gate wider. In the day of Jesus, the gates would have been through stone walls. The wall of Jerusalem, brothers and sisters, you could put every table in this room side by side, and probably that wall would still be wider. That's tremendous. Those gates don't get any wider. That's the gate they knew about in Jesus' day. You don't expand those walls. Where they're set, they're fixed, and they don't move. The gate doesn't get any wider. I don't care how hard we work and we toil, the gate is never altered. I know, God, that you said this is the way, that we're instructed even, that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. I know that, but do you see how good I've been? I know that, but do you see what I did yesterday? I know that, but do you know how much money I gave? I know that, but do you know how much sleep I've lost? And God will say, depart from me, you workers of iniquity, I never knew you. Now,